Before we begin, I'd like to preface with, well, when I wrote this review, I thought it would be really well balanced, and upon looking at it, it seems like a little bit harsh on some of the criticisms. It's a good game. It's a good game. You might not get that impression from the what's to follow, but I'm not going to do a rewrite, so here we go. This sensational game combines pulse-stopping action sequences with an intelligent simulation mode, allowing the player to forge a new civilization. Finally, experience a game that fully utilizes the advanced capabilities of the Super NES. Does the back of the box speak the truth about today's retro-reviewed game? Could it possibly deliver all that? Or does it go beyond? Perhaps it falls short. Hyperbole aside, let's crack into this action, adventure, sim, and see what fun is to be had in ActRaiser. Background viewing. Check out the description below. There's some additional takes from creators that are more skilled at the content creation process than I am. The basics. ActRaiser is an action-adventure platformer. Or maybe a town-building simulation. Actually, it's both, stitched together like Frankenstein's monster. Technically one being, but the seams definitely show. The storyline and progression do a solid job of tying these wildly different gameplay styles together, making it feel cohesive. But for me, the connection still feels a little loose. If I'm in the mood for just one of these genres, ActRaiser isn't the first game I'd reach for. In ActRaiser, you build and develop cities, fend off monsters, and strive to create a thriving world for your NPC citizens. At least that's the goal. The action stages have you wielding a sword, jumping between platforms and chopping down enemies in a side-scrolling slash-em-up adventure. Meanwhile, the simulation segments put you in a more godlike role, casting miracles, defending towns, and guiding their growth as the population expands and construction progresses. Advancement requires mastery of both gameplay styles. A city can't begin construction until the surrounding monsters have been wiped out in the action stages. Sometimes, progress is locked due to in-game requirements, but just as often, it's because you simply don't know what to do on your first playthrough. So, as a pick-up-and-play title, ActRaiser can be tough. Checking an online manual, or if you have a physical one, a real manual, or watching playthroughs, or even asking for help isn't a bad idea. There are moments where guidance makes all the difference. That said, with enough time and dedication, everything can be learned through gameplay alone. The game does teach you, with subtle and not so subtle conversations. Pay attention to any and all on-screen text if you are too stubborn to look anything up. I realize blind and no spoiler playthroughs seem to be all the craze these days, and I understand. However, there will be game mechanics you will not digest if you don't, at the very least, brush up on the manual. My youthful experience. ActRaiser is a game I had never played in my youth. I was vaguely aware of it, thanks to Nintendo Power and in-store displays, but it never found its way into my collection, nor had it ever been one of those titles I rented. I did give it an hour or so of playtime back on a lone Tuesday in the summer of 2021, and was in way over my head. Fortunately, I streamed that playthrough and had a few friends in chat to explain some things to me. I'm not sure how I would have enjoyed this as a youth. On the one hand, I fully suspect I would have found the sim sections boring and annoying, while the action platforming may have felt clunky to my younger self. On the other hand, in a time and era where I had more time for gaming and more determination to progress through games, it is possible the learning curve would have fit my temporal commitment and attitude towards gaming of the time. So it's hard to say if young Evad would have vibed with this one, or rage quit after 10 minutes and gone back to Mario Kart, like a sensible child. The look. This has a good look to it. Nothing that amazes me at the 16-bit level. Actually, it's pretty standard in that regard. But the art style is iconic and captures a sense of immersion into a very specific universe, a time and place indistinguishable from any other title. A notable accomplishment for a title released in the 16-bit era, and specifically for the Super Nintendo, a title early in this console's lifespan. And it is noticeable that this is an early release for the console. Not because of anything bad, per se, but Mode 7 shows up like it's trying to impress a date. Flashy, unnecessary, and a little insecure. It's kind of like watching the early episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation. It just feels campy, overacting, and characters hadn't found themselves yet. The developers in the early days of the SNES probably had a kit that showed them what was possible, and a lot of those early titles don't necessarily show things off in a way that make, in my opinion, a whole heck of a lot of sense. They just hadn't got the experience yet to find themselves as devs for this console yet. Don't get me wrong, the look is good. While it looks like an SNES title, it looks like an early SNES title, which is what it is. The sound. It's no secret that my favorite gaming soundtracks come from the SNES, at least when it comes to cartridge-based music. Comparing chiptune compositions to the near limitless potential of optical disc or digital audio wouldn't be fair. So I won't. But even within the realm of cartridge-based soundtracks, I've always found the 16-bit era to be a massive step up from its 8-bit predecessor, offering richer, more complex arrangements while still working within limitations. ActRaiser absolutely delivers in this department. The soundtrack is fantastic, composed with a level of depth and intensity that makes the game world feel even grander. My only real complaint? There just aren't enough tracks. The quality is exceptional, but the limited number of compositions means you'll hear the same songs quite a bit. Still, with what little it has, it offers a couple of different genres of tune. The title screen music lures you in magnificently, and the action stages deliver music that fit the mood. Meanwhile, while chatting with your ambiguously divine, questionably dressed angel sidekick, the music shifts into what I can only describe as Baroque, by way of beep, beep, boop, boop. Okay, music theorists will tear that claim apart, but that's how it sounds to me. As for the sound effects, they get the job done. They're not bad, but they're not particularly memorable either. Just serviceable. They add to the experience without stealing the spotlight. The SNES set a high bar for audio, and while ActRaiser boasts some phenomenal music and solid effects, it still feels like there was room for even greater variety. Don't get me wrong, I like the way this game sounds, but with a few more tracks and a bit more depth in the sound design, it could have been so much better. Gameplay. ActRaiser gets a lot right in the gameplay department. The action stagers feature fast, responsive controls that feel solid, mostly. There's a slight awkwardness when landing after a forward jump as momentum suddenly halts. Having played a lot of Mario over the years, this took some getting used to. But let's be real, the acclimation period is fairly quick. Collision detection is reliable, and while some jumps appear to be very, very tight, there's a bit of built-in forgiveness. I rarely came up short in platforming sections that looked dangerously tight. Enemy placement can feel a bit trolly at times, especially before you've learned the AI patterns or what's about to scroll on the screen. Some obstacles seem designed to catch you off guard. That said, these moments are rarely fatal, and once you've seen them, they're easy to anticipate. Still, I often found myself just inching forward cautiously just to see what lay ahead. The level design isn't groundbreaking, and the pacing could be smoother, but the game does a good job of teaching you as you go. It offers just enough forgiveness to keep the frustrations minimal, making these nitpicks easy to overlook. Enemy patterns are relatively basic, on short loops, and once you understand them, dealing with them becomes academic. The simulation segments are similarly well designed. Controls are intuitive, the game clearly marks enemy spawn points, making it easy to plan your defenses and your city growth. I did struggle a bit with lining up my arrow shots, but that's more on me than the game itself. Enemy behavior is fairly predictable. Just watch them for a bit, experiment with positioning and shooting and such. Their patterns become trivial to counter. Overall, the gameplay is solid. As I progress further, I'll be curious to see how enemy variety evolves. But as it stands, ActRaiser avoids unfair difficulty, and never once did I feel like the controls were to blame for my misfortunes. A sign of well-tuned mechanics. Possibly the most frustrating part as a beginner is the field of view. It's difficult to see what lies ahead if you're barreling ahead at an exorbitant rate. Things just off-screen can pose danger that you cannot anticipate, at least not until you've developed a familiarity with the stage. There are many parts of this game that I have yet to uncover, and far more I have yet to experiment with. There's a lot of potential here, but it will require greater time commitment than is currently on my palette. I hope to someday, relatively soon, be able to give this game a more robust playthrough. 30 minutes to an hour is insufficient, especially if I'm only to put in those little snippets of gaming once or twice a week. A one-player experience. Well, it's a one-player game, so who would like this? Well, it would be easy to say that fans of simulation and action platformers would like this game. I'm not so certain it's that cut and dry. For starters, the simulation is not necessarily simulation. The game walks the line between genius and genre confusion. But if you like your games with a bit of identity crisis, you'll probably love it. And the action platforming is not devoid of flaws, and regardless of how insignificant they are, don't seem to be present in dedicated action platforms, at least not the great ones. To expand on that, if you like sim but detest action platforming, or vice versa, this game may not be for you. But give it a shot at it. You never know. Regardless, if you have ample time, an open mind, and the sim plus action platforming is something that appeals to you, I feel like this is a must play. You may or may not like it, but it should be a bucket list item for you. I truly believe you're going to want to commit more hours than usual to this game to develop a fair opinion of it. The rewarding nature of this game is slow to pay off. At least, that's how I feel about it. Legacy. ActRaiser's relevance today is, well, I like to call it niche but noble. It's not exactly lighting up the retro revival scene, or even getting remastered for Nintendo's Wii U Deluxe. I think that's what it's called. Because we all know that's the next logical step. You might catch a speedrunner slicing through it with surgical precision, or stumble into a forum thread titled, "You guys remember ActRaiser?" with exactly 7 replies. But there were follow-ups to the brand, technically. But much like distant cousins forgotten in all but name, they didn't quite carry the family legacy. And yet, the game still lives on. Quietly, stoically. Like a forgotten Greek god, wondering why no one builds shrines anymore. Is it trending? No. Is it TikTok ready? Only if you can make divine urban planning go viral. But hey, maybe you can be the one that makes ActRaiser cool again. The chosen one. The algorithm whisperer. Or just someone with a really niche taste and a lot of free time. Still, I can't help but consider, with one of my complaints being the inability to see very far ahead, in the 16:9 aspect ratio era, could a modern remake be viable today? Overall, ActRaiser is a pretty good game. It has nice aesthetics, great sound, although both feel like the SNES is underutilized in these classifications, and proper gameplay. While trying to be an action-adventure platformer while simultaneously being a sim game, it accomplishes both, but it does neither flawlessly. This is a title that has a bit of a learning curve, and subtly asks its players to put in a decent amount of time before actually knowing what they are doing. While not unheard of by the SNES era, the action stages give the illusion that it could be a pick-up-and-play game, while the nuances and the simulation portions clearly dictate otherwise. If you go in with an open mind and a fair amount of time, I think there's a lot of fun to be had with this game. Reading up on it and or watching videos or tips and tricks or explainers can accelerate the learning process. But in the end, it's up to you to decide how you want to play the game. Next, ActRaiser reviews. Thanks for watching. And as always, see you next mission.